There's no way that someone could go missing in Kennedy, but it happened.
In the past 20 years, more than 1 million people have gone missing in the state of Texas. Luckily, about 99% of those cases have been cleared, but that still leaves 5,600 people that are still out there. So our investigative team looked case by case across the state, and the one that we felt spoke to the problems we were discovering was the case of Jamie Mayberry out of Kennedy, Texas.
My family, the Mayberries, I'm the youngest out of 8. Jamie, we grew up 1 year apart. He was older than I. Always do something to make you laugh. He was the jokester of the whole crowd.
He was very open about his lifestyle though.
Yes, oh yes.
In a small town, they're not used to it, being openly gay.
Well, you couldn't even tell that he was a man. And I told him I thought that was pretty dangerous.
Jamie Mayberry disappeared from his home on April 1st, 1999. He was only 35. His niece, who was the last person to see him, was just 18. I think until you're personally impacted by a loved one going missing, you don't realize how difficult it is to get answers. The police department and the city of Kennedy were really shutting us out when it came to open records, except for a single document, the front of the police report, and it was very basic information, which is why we kept asking more questions, and that really prompted the new police administration to take a fresh look at this case.
Growing up here in this small community, I knew who he was. We were friends. He was never judged as the cross-dresser that he was.
Do you feel like any of this was related to Jamie Mayberry's lifestyle?
Back then, it probably was.
It was he and I. We went out. There was a guy that was not from here. He was interested in my uncle.
He started hitting on Jamie, and once the cousin told him, you know that's a guy, he pulled out a knife, and my brother got up and took off.
What happened the next night?
There was a knock at the door. It was a guy, and he was like, "Hey, Jamie, you remember me?" I didn't get to see who was in there. It was dark. And he asked him if he wanted to go and get some beers, and then we'll bring you back.
You heard his voice?
They had like a Mexican accent. The truck, when I peeked out the window, I could see the headlights. They backed up all the way and then drove out.
When did you first realize that he wasn't coming home?
After a few hours passed, we ended up calling the law enforcement at that time.
It was Kennedy police?
It was Kennedy police.
And they told you that he just wanted to leave?
Yeah, they were like, well, how do y'all know he's missing? I mean, he's an adult. You never know. He may have wanted to go. He may have went to go visit somebody.
I know my brother, yeah. He would not have left his niece. They didn't want to deal with this because of the way Jamie was. Because he was the homosexual, and I think he was brushed under the table, you know, almost as if I want this to stay buried.
Reading the reports, I didn't get the impression that they didn't take it seriously.
Did they talk to neighbors? Did they talk to family?
They talked to anybody and everybody that was mentioned at the time.
Hello, we're working on a story about a missing persons case. Just down the block, right up the road, across the street, 1999, Jamie Mayberry.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Did you live here then?
Oh, yeah.
We're trying to find people who lived here in 1999 to see if the police talked to them back then.
No, police never came and asked anybody that I know of. He didn't come by and talk to me or anything.
Yeah, I'm assuming they did what they could do, and then when they reached a certain level, or they needed more assistance, then they started calling in other partners.
The last person to see Jamie, his niece, says she wasn't questioned until state law enforcement got involved. That's the Texas Rangers. Based on the records that we've been able to pull together, it looks like the Texas Rangers weren't requested until sometime between 5 and 11 days after Jamie was officially reported missing. We had more questions. We felt like it was important to try to track down that ranger out of retirement.
I was hoping to talk to you about a case that it looks like you worked way back 20 years ago out of Kennedy, Texas.
Mayberry,
Should Kennedy have requested help sooner?
I wouldn't get called immediately unless there was something, really obviously wrong at the scene or something.
I'm just thinking it might be because Kennedy's a small town.
I'm not going to comment on, what another agency, if they should have done something. The bad thing is that getting called in, after the fact is kind of tough. It makes it harder.
It's that very short window of time you have. You need to talk to witnesses, you need to talk to the neighbors, people around who might have seen something.
Now you've got to understand, this is Kennedy, a small community. Everybody showed up to look for Jamie. At this point, I feel the killers are among us. And then a rumor came and said, you should maybe search in that field over here.
A long time ago, in 1990, some person woke up angry at the world.
Heidi Seaman was snatched from near her San Antonio home.
And they found the most innocent, sweet, harmless soul they could find and did their worst.
Friends, family, and strangers took part in an extensive search.
Quickly attracting hundreds to help look for 11-year-old Heidi Seaman.
And Heidi's parents, of course, immediately sprang into action.
Searching continued at a nearby rock quarry where volunteers found other evidence that could have some bearing on the case.
Unfortunately, she was found deceased,
wrapped in a trash bag in this Wimberley area field.
And her murder has never been solved.
And we hope that through this search center, people will remember, and we will be able to hopefully prevent this from ever happening to anybody else, because I don't want to see anybody go through what we've gone through.
The Heidi Search Center existed for 27 years and helped families with missing loved ones. We closed in January of 2018 due to too many cases and not enough funding. They've agreed to keep all of our files safe.
This is 27 years worth of files.
The files now, they're discombobulated, and there's 4,000 of them.
All it takes is a fresh look. We haven't found it yet.
See that stack right there? It's a needle in a haystack right now.
We've been searching for a couple of hours. This is 93. What years did these go back to?
Nothing.
Not yet. Ah, here it is. Found it. All right, Jamie Mayberry.
We have the Heidi search team that came out.
We were searching all over this place. What I was told in days that went by with the Heidi Search Center, and it was pretty much we were looking for a deceased body. As hard as it might seem, that's what I was looking for. And we wanted to find it. We wanted some type of closure in some way.
These are the original case notes.
Yeah.
Last seen at 11 p.m. on Thursday, April 1st, 1999, and left home with an unknown male. He was wearing a beige, long-sleeve, button-down shirt with no collar, khaki shorts, and ladies' white slip-on tennis shoes.
Things they would be looking for would be tied to that description.
And carrying a black patent clutch purse.
And it was pretty high grass at that time. And so we all had sticks and we would be poking around. If you can see that area across the street, across there, that green patch way over there, we searched all of that over there.
We got Kennedy here, and then there was a field very near to the house that was searched.
There's another mention of an old cemetery.
This is where everyone who was on the search team would sign?
Yes, if everyone was there, which sometimes becomes very important.
The whole town almost shut down. We were split up. These people here and the neighbors all joined us.
And you can't help but think like,
yes.
Am I walking with the killer?
And that was a time someone changed our direction. And I even got suspicious of that, and it was, hey, let's check off this way.
Kind of like they're trying to steer you away.
It was that, we were just suspicious of everything, everybody, you know what I mean?
Well, you don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
At that point.
They even feel like the people that took James were out there searching at the same time.
Many times that's the case. Many times the reason we save all these records and they're so important as that the people that are responsible for the missing will be there in the searches.
If Kennedy police followed up with anybody that was on those search forms, they haven't told us.
While efforts on the ground might have stopped, the case continued to be updated over the years by the Heidi Search Center. In 2010, they took perhaps the biggest step in moving things forward.
It was the Heidi Search Center that entered Jamie Mayberry's information into a National Missing and Unidentified Persons database, better known as NamUs.
NamUs is a great tool that most people should know about. It's a database where you can connect missing people with located bodies that haven't been identified. And after someone's missing a certain amount of time, we would have a procedure to make sure either we or someone else had entered them in NamUs to make sure all those dental records are in there, got their DNA documented. So if that body turns up somewhere, that could be a match.
One of the biggest benefits is the public having access to at least some of that information.
That is 100% true, that the public is the key here, because most of the cases we have solved have been due to the public. The other thing it does is put pressure on the person who caused him to go missing to realize the world is not going to stop looking for him.
All these years later, is there hope for Jamie Mayberry?
There is hope. That family actually can't give up. I've seen cases solved 10, 15, 20 years later.
My dad he was amazing. He was just a good man. He was a good-hearted man. He always, I can't do this. 1 second. His name is John Joseph Almendares. He adored us. Our last contact was Father's Day 2002, which was right before he went missing. I just thought when you file a missing persons report, they're actively searching for the person that's missing. I didn't know they don't search. Of course, we would always search. I was watching a movie about a girl who was searching for her sister. At the end of that movie, it said that if you know anybody who's missing, go to this website. And that was the first time I ever had seen anything about NamUs.
NamUs is the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. It existed since 2007. When it was a Department of Justice program, there was a need. The program is operated here in Fort Worth, the University of North Texas Health Science Center.
Pattern type.
It's paid for with, government funding, taxpayer dollars.
It's not uncommon for us to receive cases from family members, from law enforcement agencies, from medical examiners, coroners, even the general public, concerned citizens.
And we'll release this as the thumbnail.
The public have been really helpful to look at the NamUs system to pass along the information. They're able to share it with other people, and that's the most important thing, getting the word out. They're going to be able to see maybe a height, weight for a person when they were last known to be seen, a little bit of a description that kind of explains what happened.
What can't the public see?
Dentals, DNA, fingerprints, all of that information is restricted only to professional view, and that's because that is law enforcement sensitive information.
How do you make sure those cases are accurate?
We vet all of our cases with law enforcement before we publish those cases, so it goes through a process.
There are more than 15,000 active missing persons profiles in NamUs's public database. We know that about 8% of the cases are in Texas, and that includes Jamie Mayberry's case.
So if we look at Jamie's case, we can see that he was last seen leaving his home with an unknown male on April 1st of 1999, and he just hasn't been seen or heard from since. It's helpful to know that Jamie did have pierced ears and that he did wear a black wig. So we have this information available if, for some reason, foul play has occurred.
Jamie Mayberry's profile was compared to 17 unidentified bodies in the NamUs database to see if there was a match. Unfortunately, there wasn't.
I will say that unidentified decedent cases have some really unique challenges. Depending upon the condition of the remains, it's often really difficult to determine race, ethnicity, hair color, eye color. How can we compare what we have in the database against the missing persons.
After talking to NamUs, we know to date there have been more than 1,000 cases that have been resolved because people have been able to make matches.
We've had family members of missing persons come into the NamUs database, search through the unidentified decedents, and essentially solve their own cases. They found matches to their missing person.
This is Buffalo Bayou in Houston, Texas. This is where my dad's body was found.
What happened to him?
The autopsy report from my dad says that it was an accidental drowning. From the time my dad went missing to the time he was identified, it took 12 years. The city had his missing persons report, the county had his body, and nobody connected the dots between that. I mean, I don't understand how that can happen. Hey, Daddy. Before you would come here, it would say unidentified Hispanic male. So this is the first time that I've been able to come out here where it actually has his name on his grave. Without NamUs, we would have never identified my dad. There should be no reason why, you wouldn't use a free tool to try and connect these unidentified bodies.
It's not a requirement to enter missing persons into NamUs in the state of Texas.
This should be mandatory in every state.
Chair lays out House Bill 3041 and calls on Representative Guerin.
In 2001, a lawmaker from Fort Worth named Charlie Guerin, it was his freshman term in the state legislature. He authored a bill that required police to submit DNA in missing persons cases to the University of North Texas Health Science Center, which is in Guerin's district.
Tonight I stand before you and ask for your favorable consideration on legislation that, in my opinion, addresses an issue of somber importance in the state.
So police can ask family members to submit their own DNA. If an unidentified body is found somewhere, then they can hopefully make a match and find out, is this my missing loved one?
There's over 200 unidentified bodies that we find each year in the state of Texas. Some skeletal remains, others bodies, and there's not a DNA database to pull from to identify these people. Granted, this is a difficult issue to talk about, but for the families whom this bill affects, it is crucial.
And that's why NamUs, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, set up shop there too. This is a system that gathers all types of information in a missing persons case, not just DNA.
Fingerprints, dental records, other identifiers that could be really key to solving a case.
It's open to the public. This is a website that anyone can access.
What's shocking to some people is that not all police departments and investigating agencies are required to use it.
So a lot of the information that you'd think would be there isn't. Some states are being proactive though, like New York and Michigan, Tennessee, Illinois. They've all required their police to submit all missing persons information to NamUs. One state that doesn't do it though is Texas, even though NamUs is housed in our own backyard.
We're a state that doesn't require law enforcement to participate in NamUs, and the reason that we don't is because they already do.
The numbers tell us that not all of them are. There's 5,600 active missing persons cases in Texas right now, according to the FBI and DPS, but only 1,200 people are entered into the NamUs system. So it seems like there's a lot of people, that's just in the last 20 years, that are missing that aren't in the NamUs system.
If I thought that we being law enforcement in Texas were not participating in a meaningful manner, then I think it would be necessary for us to pass legislation that would require it.
Knowing that other states are requiring law enforcement agencies to report to NamUs, do you think it's at least something Texas should explore?
If we need to be part of NamUs in order to get police to submit the stuff, then we'll carry a bill and do that. I think that the more information that's out there on missing person, the more that's available, the better. I appreciate you bringing this to us.
Is this worth it to give up information we have to get the public's help? And that's a case-by-case decision.
But when you have a 20-year cold case?
Sure. At this point, Right.
We've hit roadblocks in Jamie Mayberry's case because it's technically still open. The city of Kennedy has denied us access to all records except for a single document, the front of the police report. There is a section that's labeled suspects, and there are 3 names in that category.
As of today, we have no suspects. We have no persons of interest. We do have 1 or 2 people that maybe can give us information that we would like to.
This is, if I remember right, this is the individual that's supposed to be in Chicago.
The first name on the list of suspects is a guy named Johnny Fadies. Apparently he was visiting his cousin from out of town. His cousin, Albert Fadies, is also on the suspect list. Now he has an extensive criminal background. That includes assaulting a police officer, and the court documents show he even threatened to kill that officer's wife. So we've tracked down several possible phone numbers.
Hello?
Hey there, I'm looking for Albert Fadies.
You have reached a non-working number.
He's apparently moved away from Kennedy.
The person you are trying to reach is not accepting calls at this time.
We think he might be living with his brother in Alice, Texas. Do you know where I might be able to find him?
Yeah.
His brother has given us a phone number.
Your call has been forwarded.
So we have left a message.
Last time I saw him, he's not in the best of health. He suffered a major stroke, and it's hard to understand him when he speaks.
There is one person we would like to talk to, I believe, who I would characterize as a witness at this point.
This is the person that's more of interest, in my opinion, right now.
How do you know that she might know something?
It stays the way it is until I can actually sit down and visit with this individual to really see, okay, you said this back then, what really did happen? Has there been a conscience there that's been bothering her? I wasn't able to make contact with her, and she never returned phone calls. This is where we're stuck at.
Hi. Looking for Diana Perez. Okay.
Sometimes it takes a little elbow grease to try to track people down, and sometimes they're hiding in plain sight.
He felt like he was a woman.
He was a cross-dresser. He liked to dress like a female.
People frowned upon because you didn't see that all the time.
Probably a big reason why he's been missing for as long as he has.
20 years, that's a long time.
Yes, sir.
If you're hitting up on a person that looked very attractive, and then you come to find out that the person isn't the person that you thought it was, it would probably aggravate one.
What do you think happened to Jamie Mayberry?
My speculation is he was probably murdered.
I believe it was a hate crime.
Absolutely.
You may think that you got away with something, but you didn't. It's never going to be over.
Investigations are like a puzzle. You're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together to get an answer. Law enforcement, it was my calling. You know, I've been doing it my adult life. Kennedy was the first police officer job I had. The chief of police at the time was a good friend of mine. His name was Irving Snell.
So he would have been in charge of the investigation?
Yes, sir, yes.
The chief told you he interviewed someone over the phone?
Yes, sir, he did.
So the first name on the list of suspects on the police report is Johnny Fadies. Witnesses say that he went to this bar where Jamie Mayberry was that night and started hitting on him, and when he found out that he was not a woman, he got upset and got really threatening. Then after Jamie went missing, Johnny is nowhere to be found. We can't find him, and neither can police. Did he just get out of town fast?
A few days after Mr. Mayberry came up missing, and as a police officer, that would send up a little clue why.
Would you have done anything differently with the investigation yourself if you had been in charge of it?
I always do face-to-face interviews. You read body language that way, especially when you ask the tough question, you know, point blank. You want to see the reaction.
Back then, the Kennedy Police Department was pretty small. There were only 6 officers, and within a year after Jamie went missing, all of them had left the force. Those who we were able to track down weren't talking, or they wouldn't say much, only that they didn't remember very much about the case. And unfortunately, the lead investigator, which was the police chief from back then, he died a few years ago, which is why it was important to find someone who really knew what was going through his head at that time. So I tracked down a good friend and colleague who took me to a place where the two of them had actually searched for Jamie together. What was the thought that Jamie Mayberry might be in this cemetery or this area?
You know, somebody trying to hide his body or try to hide evidence. Trying to locate a torn piece of clothing, a shoe, just anything that you wouldn't normally find in a cemetery.
This might be a coincidence, but we were in a cemetery talking about this case, and then we came across another court document from about a year after Jamie went missing. It also mentioned a cemetery. There was a guy who was picked up by 2 men and a woman in a car, robbed, and then beaten up. He was able to get free. He told police when he asked the driver, "Where are you taking me?" She said, "The cemetery." That driver was Diana Perez, and she went to prison for nearly 11 years in this incident for aggravated kidnapping and robbery. It turns out that's the same Diana Perez that is on a list of suspect names on Jamie Mayberry's missing persons report. We know she was questioned in Jamie's case, but no one was ever charged. And today, police tell us that she's only a witness. They still want to talk to her, though, to see if her story's changed after all of these years, but they tell us that they can't find her. We are out in the middle of nowhere.
I have my go-to sources that I like to try to find phone numbers and addresses. It's not always the first one that pops up.
Just go down this road, straight down this road, and then take a left.
This address didn't work out, let's move on to the next one.
Hey there, I'm looking for Diana Perez.
It's always exciting when you knock on that door and you're able to talk to them.
Hi, are you Diana?
Yes.
I'm Josh, I'm a reporter from Austin. We're working on a story about Jamie Mayberry. I wondered if you might know him.
You can get off my property right now is what you can do.
Okay, is there a reason you won't talk with me?
You can get off my property right now.
Okay.
We have a right to bear arms, and I'm not scared to use them, so get off my property right now.
Did you know that Kennedy police are looking for you?
Before I use force.
Did you hear that?
Josh sent me a video of the encounter and I watched it, and I had to watch it a couple times because I was like, I can't believe this happened.
You can get off my property right now.
So we share that with the detective, and so the text message says, "Before we left Kennedy, I tracked down Diana Perez at a home near 3 Rivers. Please let me know if you're able to reach her and move the case forward." Shows that he read the message, but there hasn't been any kind of response, and it's been several days.
My kids, boy, they would really love him. I talk about him all the time. I know your life goes on.
And he wouldn't want us to give up. He would tell us not to give up, to keep fighting.